Okay, so welcome back to the poster session. We have a long day, so this is the last part of the seminar today, the poster session number 5, and we will start with Alissa. And so can I have next slide, please? Okay, so in the poster presentation, we will be seeing the poster, and then the poster presenter will have about 2 minutes to talk about, give us an overview, and then we will follow up with questions. So off to you, Alissa.
All right, thank you very much, Lily, and Pepe, that was a wonderful presentation. That is definitely an act to follow, but anyway, it's actually quite kind of an interesting segue. So the goals through a culmination of research and personal reflection of teaching experience, my personal teaching experience and practices, was to outline some practical pedagogical methods that could be used in our music classes to heighten language acquisition for English language learners, ELL students. So if I'm unable to answer any questions that are generated during the discussion portion of the talk, please note my email address on the slide. Even though I'm no expert, I would still be more than happy to continue the conversation. So the teaching strategies in the paper are broken down into the 3 categories you see on the slide to your left. So I'll start with music, lyric analysis, and building language vocabulary. Integrating activities that encourage language acquisition into our music education pedagogy really can benefit and enrich ELL students' vocabulary expansion and syllabic rhythm patterns when they're learning new words. But they also offer ways for us educators to include opportunities to be cross-curricular in our teaching. So teaching music songs that are reinforcing vocabulary from the students' language arts class, for example. And so while these lesson ideas would most be suitable for general music or elementary choral settings, these lesson ideas could potentially be adapted for instrumental settings as well. I'll now move on to rote teaching. So rote teaching is interesting because, especially for beginning band directors, it's often avoided. We tend to want to rush into the process and introduce notation right away. But when used in moderation, rote teaching can be rather effective in heightening listening skills for ELL students and tonal processing. So incorporating rote teaching can also improve phonemic awareness, the repetition, the call and response, the sequencing that is all kind of automatically built into that rote teaching or rote to note process can be very effective for ELL students. And finally, language learning in the music classroom through autonomy. While it's crucial for all students to be exposed to autonomous learning, this could be effective for any student really. Any kind of autonomous learning or acts of leadership roles are particularly helpful for ELL students to practice their oral communication skills. So in all kinds of settings, leadership roles or autonomous opportunities can be assigned or voluntarily encouraged by the teacher. For students, it would look like a warm-up or a hello song in general music, or any kind of activity like that, any kind of beginning activity to put students into a positive mood and get them ready to participate for the rest of the lesson. Or the teacher, like I said, can give a selection of warm-up songs for the student to lead. So that is a very dry run through. I hope I didn't speak too fast, and I'd be willing to take questions if there are any.
Thank you, Alissa. So I'm now checking if there is any questions. Please put them on the chat. And maybe I can start with asking you, how about these ideas? Do you think that it will work in virtual teaching?
Isn't that a very relevant topic right now? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. If a school district is using any kind of Zoom platform or Screencastify or Pear Deck with Google, any of these methods, probably autonomous learning could be a little bit difficult, but it could still work if the sequence is done properly. A lot of times now, especially with band directors, we're kind of reimagining the way that we're teaching band in a virtual setting. So we are taking that music elective and combining it with music technology, composition, music appreciation, anything in that realm. So this could be worked into it that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I see there are some people giving some suggestions on the chat. And okay, it's moving very fast. Okay, Valerie, you might want to know about Jonathan Goldek's work and music and language learning. Yeah, do you know about that? Yes.
I have,
So
yeah, I know. Yeah. I love, there's tons of suggestions, especially because this is such an evolving topic. I feel like this is a topic that's constantly, we're constantly finding out more. We're constantly being more creative with our ideas and our approaches. And I have more of a list of sources that I'd be willing to share on an individual basis. But to answer the question, yes, I have heard of that source. Yes.
Yes, so Jody also mentioned about Mary Helen Richards' work. And so there are lots of wonderful suggestions here.
Yeah,
for
definitely.
general music pedagogy dealing with language. This sounds wonderful. Yes. And
Yes.
so I have a question from myself. You talked about rote teaching, and then,
yes.
I mean, in the poster, in the conclusion, and then you talk about classroom autonomy. So where comes the balance?
Yeah, the balance is definitely, that's going to be unique for any music educator, of course, depending on their class demographic and whatnot. Finding a balance is also going to be unique based on the students you have. We're always going to be finding out the way our students learn. So these methods can be used in a combination. These ideas can be used separately. They may not even be used at all. It's all going to really depend on getting to know our students and the way they learn. I think, even though that's a vague answer, that's not necessarily what you were looking for. I think that's probably the most appropriate way I can answer right now.
Yes, thank you. That's very interesting. Let me see any other chat. Yeah, do you think that there is possibility of do sort of differentiation instruction where if the language levels are different among the students?
Differentiation wouldn't exactly need to change. While this presentation is geared toward methods that can be beneficial for ELL students, these methods would benefit any student. So all these methods that develop oral communication, tonal processing, especially for younger students, that could benefit any child. So no, the differentiation would not necessarily need to change.
Okay. All right. So I think if there is no more questions, we want to thank Alissa for sharing this very interesting work, because I mean, music and language are so closely connected, especially like when we're singing and you talk about the lyrics, and actually part of my research too. So it's fascinating. Thank you very much, Alissa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the second poster. Let's see. Marilla, are you somewhere?
Sorry, I'm mute.
Okay. Oh, great! I can see you now. Okay, it's a little strange on this computer. Yes, but now I can see you. Great. Welcome, Marilla. So this is your time now. So tell us more about your work.
Okay. So music education is an integral part of Brazilian culture and one of its major symbols. In this poster, I explored the main characteristics of the music education in Brazil. Although Brazil is culturally and economically diverse, there are common traits that characterize the main forms of music education available nationwide. Music instruction is available in a variety of private and public settings, including schools, conservatories, community ensembles, and individual instruction. In schools, students will primarily receive musical instruction in the form of general music class, taught by a licensed specialist music educator. Students will sing, learn simple percussion instruments, dances, folk songs, important celebrations, and sometimes recorder. Some cities have public conservatories and community bands fully funded by the government that offer classical music training and occasionally jazz and bossa nova. In the last few decades, non-governmental organizations had proliferated throughout the country offering music for underprivileged children. Those music outreach programs brought unimaginable opportunities for their students, such as attending college and being admitted to prestigious music schools around the world. In 2008, a law was passed making music compulsory in the school curriculum. This law was voided in 2016, making music becoming again an optional content under the arts umbrella. Since colonial times, music has been in and out of the curriculum, changing in importance according to political interests and educational situations. Some of the current problems of music education in Brazil are shortage of qualified teachers, high prices of instruments, scarcity of methodological materials, and poor support of politicians and administrators. Brazilian music education exemplifies how to value culture and musical traditions and the importance of ensuring access to general music framework. While the majority of students may never hear classical music, they all know the main folkloric songs and are imbued with an appreciation and love of music that will follow them into the future.
Okay, thank you. This is your summary, right? Thank
Yes.
you. Okay. Oh, I see that you are now at the University of Miami, but are you originally from Brazil?
Yeah. We met in California 4 years ago. I was teaching in California.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yes. So that's very nice that you bring some information about Brazilian music education to us at ISME. This is excellent. And so let me see if there is somebody asking question here. Thank you, Maria. In the teacher training part, you wrote non-recognized degree in music conservatory. Could you please explain this? What does it mean to be non-recognized and why?
Sure. The conservatories, the public conservatories, you can be there and you can graduate. You can go through the whole training. It's usually like 10 years to graduate in piano or conducting or voice or another instrument, right? You take all the classes for music theory, all oral skills and everything. And then you do all your, classes and your repertoire and you graduate. But once you graduate, your degree really doesn't really let you do anything with it. It is not recognized by the Department of Education, neither by the Ministry of Education. So you cannot go and teach in a school. You could go and teach informally, let's say in a church, for example, like a lot of people do. They go to a conservatory, they play in the church, they go to a conservatory, they learn and they teach in the church. But they could not go and teach in a school, for example. They would need to go to an university, get an undergraduate degree in music education with a licensure, and then they would be able to teach. So it's not a recognized degree in the sense that is not the same thing as a higher education degree or a licensure.
Mm-hmm. I
think
see.
I hope that was the question.
What strides have the Department of Education made for inclusion of children in general music education class? It's a question from Alissa. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, what strides have? So the Department of Education didn't do much. Once they had the law approved in 2008, they had till 2012 to have music in all schools. But they did not have any reinforcement, right? I know many schools that did change a lot of things to make sure that music happened. I know some public school districts that actually went all the way and started music programs that nowadays are very successful. But unfortunately, this did not happen everywhere. And since 2016, when the law was voided, there was still, some people who did not do anything about it. Is definitely not doing anything about it right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Let me see. So How about the inclusion of children with disabilities?
So inclusion in Brazil is a little bit tricky. We don't have any law like IDA here. Theoretically, the kids should be accepted in school, but the schools are not really equipped to deal with it. I personally had a couple students with disability, but they were in private schools. And even in private schools, it's still complicated because the schools usually don't have the resources, the teachers don't have the training, and special education, unfortunately, is still a little bit new in the country.
Okay. Okay, I see there is another comment about it's like in the UK requiring that stricter music performance student obtain a qualified teacher status and PGC in music education before they can teach in schools. So this is in response to an earlier answer you've provided. And Happy says like this everywhere in the US too. And Emily Akuno said that this might be an unfair question, but are you in a position to advise if there has been any change in public music education in recent years that might be attributed to ISME coming to Brazil in 2014?
So yes, right, like I'm not in a position to say. I can say from my perspective, comparing to the people I know that are teaching in Brazil. So unfortunately, not everybody really knew that ISME happened in Brazil. I would say that pretty much everybody who went to the university with me, they had no idea what was going on. They had no idea that ISME was happening. They had no idea that ISME even exists. I personally got to know about ISME because I was already in the United States. So it's unfortunate. We have, for music education, we have the ABEM, that's the Brazilian Association. And even the ABEM, they don't have the outreach that the institutions have in the United States, right? Like here, you have the NAFME, the regional NAFMEs, right? Like I mentioned with, right, with Dr. Chen Hafteck, that I met her there in the regional of NAFME a couple years ago. And we have here in Florida, every January, the NAFME regional happens here in Tampa. But we don't have that, that knowledge of what is going on. So ABEM have conferences every year. And we also have a Latin America one, that is the FLADEM. That is also a big conference that a lot of people from Brazil go. But we don't have people that represent those institutions that go to the university. We don't have people that talk about it. We don't have access. It's really weird to say that, but unless something changed, which I don't think it did, because I had this conversation with some people who are there right now a couple of weeks ago. But we go to school and we get our degrees in music education, and everybody is very isolated. It's like people don't talk to each other. So I was in São Paulo, and unfortunately, I have no idea what people are doing in other states. And I know there are wonderful projects. And a lot of them, I got to meet a lot of wonderful people when ISME was in Brazil. And for me, it was very important. For me, it changed a lot of things. It opened a lot of possibilities. But I know a lot of people who did not even know. So it would be amazing if, you know, the universities have more contact with these kind of organizations, and if the students had more access. And I would love to, you know, help on that. I would love to reach out to them and spread the word. And I hope I can do that. But unfortunately, that's not the situation.
Yeah. Thank you. This is very interesting. And so next, let's see. Fang was mentioning that she lived in Shanghai, China, and the qualification is quite important. It's sometimes disappointing that everyone is able to get a qualifications as far as passing the test. And so that is very interesting. I mean, internationally in another country, there is also echoing, the situation is echoing what you were mentioning in Brazil. Okay, Mariana mentioned that do you have music education teachers for general schools and those for music school, which is special, trained and prepared according to district or similar programs in the same institution?
Okay, so I don't know if I understood what you mean, but the music schools is like conservatories, right? So the only way to become a music school teacher, right, a music educator, is going to an undergraduate degree. So the undergraduate process is not a BA, it's not a bachelor degree, it's a licensure. So you take the classes, and depends on the institution you go, you might take the classes with all the students from the bachelor in performance, for example. That was the case of my institution. Everybody was in one class, instrument, performance, everybody together. We take the main music classes together, and then we from music education go and take classes in the pedagogy department. But I know other programs, they have classes just for the people from music education. But you take music classes and then you get a licensure and then you become a certified teacher. But if you go to a conservatory or like a general music school, you cannot do that. They don't have any kind of degree. You would need to, after going to the conservatory, go to the university. So what happens in many times, and I did that, you usually go to a conservatory or to a music school to study instruments. And then you go to college to do whatever specialization you want to do. So at the same time I was doing my degree in music education, for example, I was in a public conservatory studying flute. But I did not finish. But you could actually finish and get degree from both. So I hope that.
Yeah, thank you. Unfortunately, time is up for this session, and so I'm sorry there are still some more chat, and some people want to continue the discussion, and we still have Facebook, and we have many possibilities. So let's continue in another place. So now, thank you very much, Marilla, and we have to move on to the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes. Thank you. We are so interested in Brazil. Thank you for sharing the information. And now we move to Canada, right? Sara and Valerie, are you here? You can unmute your microphone now.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you too. Great, welcome, Sara.
Thank you. It's fun. It's funny because I have dinner with Brazilian friends tonight. I have a big barbecue with my Brazilian friends in Quebec. There's a lot of Brazilian students in Quebec City. So I'm in the mood now. So, okay. So as part of my doctoral thesis on music listening under the supervision of Dr. Valerie Peters, I documented and analyzed the teachers' pedagogical practices and the students' perceptions of them. In Prague, I presented my first research question on the concept of music appreciation. This poster is about my second research question about teaching and evaluating. So I adopted an inductive and collaborative approach in order to conduct this research in the field in collaboration with music teachers and students. I collaborate with 3 teachers, 33 students ages 14 to 18 from 3 different socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds, 3 types of music classes. I used written questionnaires for teachers and students, individual interviews with teachers, and group interviews with students. The teachers often use a traditional paper and pencil approach to teach music appreciation or music listening. The 2 male teachers use the teaching paradigm where the teacher has the knowledge and pass it on to the students. The female teacher used the learning paradigm that encourages discussion and collaborative work, promotes exchange with the students, and the music teacher acts as a guide or a facilitator. That's for the teachers. As for the students, they had a lot to say about music listening activities. they would like to participate in the choice of the repertoire. They would like the teachers to use music they already know, so it could help them and make it easier and make it more fun. But they also like to discover new music. They would like to experience other ways than pencil and paper to do music listening in school. There was a big difference between music listening in school and outside of school. I can talk more about that later if you want. So completing my doctorate raised multiple questions. In the near future, I will continue to collaborate with teachers to develop teaching materials to make music listening activities in school more relevant to the students. So on the screen, you see my findings, basically written, and the recommendations that came from the students, mostly from the students' comments in my research. So the main thing I found that they like the music appreciation activities, but they didn't get emotionally involved. It was in school, it was like all in school active listening, and they didn't get emotionally involved as they would do outside of school. So I would like to find ways to get the kids to get emotionally involved when they listen to music in school. Even though the teacher, the female teacher was trying to do it, still the students, like, they were in school, so they were really rational about the music listening. So that's a quick look at what I'm doing.
Thank you, Zara. Okay, so if there are any questions, please put on the chat. And may I ask, you were talking about emotionally involved. So you said the students do not get emotionally involved. Can you explain to us a little bit more about what you mean by emotionally involved?
Yes, the teacher would ask to explain the emotion they were feeling while listening to music, but they were more describing the feelings that they hear in the music. So they were percepting the feelings, but they were not feeling it. They were not getting into the music. One of the reasons, it was maybe because they didn't have enough time, because the teachers don't, sometimes they seem to think they're losing time, spending time on doing music listening is not playing, so they could do it quickly, and the kids don't have the time to get really into the music. So they didn't let themselves feel the music and live the music. They would just listening. They were listening about, the instruments, the everything the teacher asked, but it was still the emotion didn't get to them.
I see. Yeah. Okay. We have some chat. A question from Emily. Did the students' response vary with the genre of music used in the lessons? Were they probably more responsive to popular genres as opposed to classical ones?
Not really. The teachers used a wide variety of music, from pop music to film scores and classical music. And it was, the kids said, the students said that it wasn't the music that was that would make them feel the music. It was more the activities. So they made a great distinction between the music that was used and the listening activities. So I don't think I'm sure that, yes, popular, they ended up identify more to popular music, but they were really eager to learn about classical music, and they loved listening to classical music too. So it would be another, I look at researches on that, and it was like dated a little bit. So I would really love to pursue that kind of research about the genre of music used in the lessons.
Thank you. Yes, and then I see another question here. How were the listening tasks framed?
Yes, so they were mainly, listening to the music, and they had questionnaires from the teachers that they would write down the answers. Some of them were really, following the music and answering the question while the music was playing. And others were more like a lecture where the teacher was saying stuff about the composer, and then they would listen to the music, and they had a quiz the next lesson about what the teacher said about the composer, but it was more about the composer than about the music sometimes. So maybe that's but I asked the teachers to prepare an activity where they thought the students would like it, and another one that they thought the students would not like. And the students liked both activities. So it wasn't necessarily the repertoire or the activities, it was a mix of the two. So sometimes the kids said, I like this activity, but I love the music from the other one. So mix of the two would be the best. So I have lots to say about that, but I can get into the details. We don't have time.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, we don't have time, but I can see a lot of questions asking about
Yes.
would there be gender differences in emotional responses and the assessment questions, and so, and a lot more about the tasks, the activities. So unfortunately, we will not have time. So I would very welcome to continue the conversation. We have a Facebook page, we have other possibilities. So thank you very much, Zara, for this presentation.
Thank you. That was so fast. I hope to see you again and we can continue this conversation. Thank you to my MISTEC family.
Yes,
I miss
thank you. Thank you. Miss you too. Okay, so next presenter, Sunny. Sunny Choi, are you there? If you are there, please unmute yourself so we can see you and hear you. Hi, Sunny. Welcome to MISTEC. Is this your first MISTEC?
Yeah, it is actually.
Yeah, so welcome. And so I see that you are a doctoral student at NYU. So yeah, so go ahead, share with us your work. We are very interested.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sunny. Thank you, Lily, for the introduction. So I'm a doctoral student in music education from NYU, but my background in music education actually comes from the e-learning industry, where I've worked with companies on developing digital music education environments. So it's a relatively fresh field to begin with, considering, we still have, from the educators' point of view, some that, really embrace technology in their teaching, some that are a little bit against, and some who are trying to look for a balance between tech when it comes to utilizing that in their classroom or not. So my paper is, it's an extended reflection on the topic related to engagement and motivation, and the complexity of the term play when it comes to introducing learning to play the piano in a digital environment. So for me, piano is my primary instrument, and this is also the instrument that I'm most interested in studying and researching. So hence the focus of piano as being the instrument that I chose. So if we look at the diagram in the middle in my poster, this is a figure that I tried to illustrate, trying to tie the term motivation, engagement, and play. So introducing skills that require a physical form of execution. So we collectively define this as play, right? When it comes to operating a musical instrument. But this really escalates the complexity of designing an effective digital music environment. And when I say effective, it doesn't necessarily mean something that'll work in a classroom or not work in a classroom, but rather creating an effective learning design for providing a digital environment where, learning to play a musical instrument is actually made a possibility as self-regulated learning. So when we talk about just motivation alone, obviously motivation is considered an important element towards creating an effective learning experience. So for example, the initial motivation behind learning to play the piano can serve as an attractive trigger behind playing the instrument for the first time. But unfortunately, the process of learning that disrupts the very idea of play dominates the journey quite early. And that results in eliminating the initial learner-led motivation. On the other hand, when we talk about engagement, specifically what I call efficient playing. So when I say efficient playing, I'm referring to play-driven goal with efficiency. So when it comes to certain digital music education platforms that target certain learners to provide very tangible results. So an example would be, a game-based design that promotes achieving real results, but the problem is it's separated from the real world. So going back to the diagram again, the purple arrows there are actually indicating the sort of a strategic path that digital game-based environments take when it comes to sort of commonly approaching the order to provide the illusion to learners that they're successfully playing something tangible despite their early stage as learners. So sure, engagement-wise, it's very quick, but acquisition of theory or theoretical knowledge might be lacking. So, this kind of way about introducing play for the first time, which is a very quick way to sort of diving right into it. It very much promotes a behaviorism driven type of learning. So, with that very compact summary, the difference between sort of the social constructivist and socio-cultural approaches, these two are associated, but it also presents a very slippery slope for accessibility to culture and to dismiss the importance behind the constructivist instructional design. So in conclusion, I really am an advocate for collaborative work between the music educators, learning scientists, and designers that must work collaboratively when it comes to constructing a pedagogically sound digital music education environment. So that's my quick summary of my poster. If you have any questions or you want to find out more about the work that I've done in the past, my email as well as my website is attached on the poster. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunny. Very, very interesting. Maybe while I see the people, our friends may be taking time to type some questions in the chat, but I have a first question. You mentioned about the digital game design to engage students. And so can you tell us a little bit more what exactly it is? And is that something you have worked on, you have designed, or is it from somewhere you found?
Yeah, so my past experience, my latest experience in creating e-learning environment was with Musician. Musician's a digital music education platform where they teach you how to learn various instruments. And I was their head of music education designer for piano specifically. The platform that Musician first deals with is very much based on game-based learning, which is different from gamified, the notion of something that's gamified. When you're talking about something that is gamified, it can be based on some other subject, but by putting game elements into the process of learning in order for you to get a deeper understanding of that very subject that you're really trying to learn. On the other hand, game-based learning is really, it's sort of taking the game elements one step further by trying to implement those elements, the game elements, in a familiar sort of, when it comes to music notation environment, for example. But by eliminating certain things that you would need to really consider in order for you to detect what it means to count or read notes, the game elements really help you to enhance the experience so that the engagement is right there with lowering the barrier of entering, learning, acquiring theory knowledge for the first time, for example. So it's still a very new industry, in my opinion, having worked in the field, and it's also, you know, something that competitors always try to go after. You know, they want to acquire more users, but then what does it mean when it comes to, you know, these digital place environments when they refer to users? Are we talking play? Are we talking learn? Or is this something that we could potentially implement in embracing teaching music in the field of music education, where it doesn't have to be something that, you know, we go against or we embrace, but it's something that naturally is something that becomes part of a tool that we can continue to work together towards building and developing a digital platform that really works for everyone, that's going to make music educators happy, as well as users that are, you know, utilizing these applications outside of their classroom environments, who are genuinely interested in something that has to do with music.
Yeah, I see. All right. Well, there are quite a lot of things in the chat box, as you can see, and there's some suggestions also. And just maybe we have a quick last question from Emily. She feels a connection between motivation and engagement. Might you find or trace any? So I see that you mentioned the digital game design will lead to engagement, traditional activity lead to motivation. So what's the difference, engagement, motivation? Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. So when it comes to like game design, for example, engagement is something that, you know, they are often after because it has to do with user retention. So if you're not retaining your users, they're very quick to quit the app or whatever digital platform that the game is designed under. So engagement is something that, you know, they want to really try to go after before potentially, you know, motivation could come in, so that you're motivated to on another level to, let's say, to beat somebody who is who's using the same application as you, so that you can sort of make a statement by saying, I'm better than you. And then there are those that are also interested in just exploring the environment just for what it is. So there's different ways to go about sort of connecting the engagement to motivation. But when it comes to sort of a traditional sit down, learning an instrument, so let's say playing the piano, with a physical teacher next to you, you know, the motivation initially, before a teacher even comes in, there is some reason for you to start learning that instrument. But until it gets to a level where you can actually physically play some notes and be able to understand what it is that you're reading and playing at the same time, to an extent that it starts to make sense to you and it sounds coherent, it takes a bit more time for you to get to that level where you're truly engaged with the process of learning, because that happens not just with a teacher next to you, but outside of that teacher, the lesson time, where you have the time to reflect upon what you've done. That happens after the teacher is removed from the teaching environment. So yeah, there's definitely a connection between motivation and engagement.
Thank you, Sunny. Thank you very much for the presentation. We have to move on to the last poster now. Thank you for sharing this very interesting work with us. Okay, so the next presenters, Malachi and Emily. Are you there? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, we are there. Thank you, Lily.
Welcome from Kenya. Wow.
Thank you so much.
We're so happy to have you here. So tell us more about your work, please.
Just to, Malachi is going to give the presentation, but I'd like to let us know that there's an article that is going to be included in a book called The Music Technology Cookbook, Ready-Made Recipes for the Classroom. It is edited by one of the members of ISME, Adam Patrick Bell. So look out for it from Oxford University Press. So over to you, Malachi.
Thank you so much for the chance. My name is Malachi, and our presentation, as you can see, is talking about music technology used in students. And I want to present to you just some of our teaching experiences and reflections from the classroom, how we approach teaching dance using online resources. Now, traditionally or conventionally, teaching dance has been a pedagogy whereby we, in our universities or at tertiary levels, we simply invite some of the facilitators from the community. Like, for example, if you want to learn a Maasai dance, Kenya is a multicultural society. So to learn a Maasai dance, if you're not a Maasai, it will be quite challenging. So traditionally, what we've always done was to bring in a Maasai person into the university who would train the students so that they have, the practical learning experiences from the Maasai man. But then with a lot of recordings and archivals through the YouTube and other online resources and recorded videos, which we have archived in the university since from different conferences, we are now able to use this and bring it to the classroom. And we are able to teach it using them in the classroom. So what we simply do is we first bring it, we teach the students about the history of dance, just like on my literature, just in 2016 notes that there are particular elements that must be taught in dance. And these some of the most important things would include like having to know the dance history, and then you have to know the elements of each element of a particular dance. So normally we have a situation whereby we want to use online resources, but we have to bring first to the attention of the students the background of the dance and the importance why it is dance. And that is the time when we decide, when we want to teach it to the students, we would want to package it such that we take care of the gender parity. We have the girls dancing certain dances. And again, most of our cultural dances, some are meant for the boys only, some are meant for the girls only. So we do carefully select what we use. And we have a lot of YouTube channels where most of these dances have been recorded. Or sometimes we get to our Presidential Music Commission, they do a lot of recording archival for the country. So this is the approach we are now using currently in situations where you don't have that instructor from a particular community. And likewise, sometimes we're teaching dance classes for our theater laboratory in theater classes, because I teach it, for example, in most of the university, we have music and dance and theater departments together. So sometimes we want to learn hip hop dance from America, or we want to do a Chinese dance, or we want to do an Indian Arabic dance. So we actually get to use the online resources which are available to us. The students would be first introduced to some listening or guidance, where they do simply listening appreciation. And then we go and with the help of the lecturer in charge, the tutor would analyze the music. And with the help of the students, we get to know who are the first learners of this dance. And you get the lead roles and you separate the roles. Some of them may be drumming, playing the instrument. Some of them may be taking part in the singing. So they have to learn the music script or like the songs. Because here we talk about dancing, there has to be music that the dancer responds to. So this is usually the way to go. So what you're addressing here is how we are moving from the conventional way of teaching dance, where we use a facilitator, live facilitator, vis-a-vis the new method where we are now using YouTube and other online resources. So this is basically our new pedagogic approach to teaching dance. And with the current situation with the corona pandemic, the learning is going on and the students have to learn. So we give them the channels and they're able to follow this and perform the dances from wherever they are. And we can access this also online. So they would dance to the particular clip, which is given to all students. Then they would come together and record themselves, and we are able to assess them using this. So we are able to get the feedback and assess them and give them marks for the degree courses. So that's a bit of just my presentation, and I think Emily will take over from there. Thank you.
That's all. I think it is in order to invite questions, but that one thing that I need to mention is that technically in our context, when you talk of learning a dance, it is not just the movement, it is the music that generates or that supports that dance that one needs to know. And I think this is partly because that is the way it is practiced. Music and dance go together. But in a teaching and learning context, especially when you deal with teacher education, the learners, the student teachers are taught everything that makes that dance possible. So they get to learn the music and they get to learn the movements. So you do not know a dance until you know the music that goes with the dance. And we're not talking about some extreme levels of expertise, but you need to have a working knowledge of the sound to which the dance responds. Thank you, Lily. I think we can have the questions if there are any.
Yes, so please put your question in the chat so that we can see and ask them. Maybe I ask the first questions that you're talking about online resources for teaching dance. Do you think the results is not the same as teaching in person? I mean, dance is a movement, it's a very personal thing. So do you think that the teaching dance with the online resources is actually not the same as, or actually you think the effects can be similar? Can you tell us more about this?
Thank you. There is something, wait a minute. I hope I'm not muted. No, I'm not. There's something about the, shall I call it the human touch? When you have the live role model, this person is able to note the subtle differences. It's like in movement, in gestures. And I'll give an example. If you consider dance, just look at the upper limbs, the hands. In a lot of Kenyan communities, there's a shaking or a rotation or whatever it is, whether it is happening at elbow or at shoulder level. Those distinguish between the dance movement of one community from another. So if you have a specialist they will be able to note those little differences, which as a non-specialist who is facilitating this dance but using a pre-recorded track, I may not be very sensitive to that. So it is just that attention to detail that I think the specialist would be able to do. And again, having the specialist, I think, frees the learners to extemporize. I think there's a lot more creativity that having a specialist in the class will encourage, that replicating what one sees in a pre-recording might not allow the learners to do.
Yeah, very interesting. And one follow-up question is that you mentioned about the dance, how it is connected to the music, and it was very interesting to hear you saying that the teachers have to learn, when they learn the dance, they can learn better the music. And so I know that in the African cultures, music and dance are really closely connected. Can you tell us a little bit more how important it is, I mean, for the music teacher to have to incorporate the dance in the classroom when they're teaching music? Yes, and the connection between music and dance in music education in Kenya.
I can pick that too. I think this comes from the history of music instruction, school music instruction, that when music now became a school subject, teacher education needed to make sure that the teachers who are going to be posted to these schools would be able to handle everything. That is one. Number two, up to today, I am not aware of even a university program that separates dance from music. We do not have separate dance departments. It is a music department that incorporates dance, or a music and dance department. And that is because the two have traditionally been just meshed together. And so the artistic expression that involves body movements necessarily involves sound. And the sound is either vocal or instrumental, and occasionally combined. Those who may be familiar with the works of people like Mekin Zewi, you may note that through him, the term musical arts has become pretty much entrenched in the music education circles within much of Africa. And that is just to recognize that there are several artistic expressions, there are several modes of expression that come together to create that which is called music. And so the dance component is really, you really cannot pull it out of what you call music, and it remains culturally understood as music. So we're talking about culture here. I think in an earlier presentation, somebody quoted Kippers, and he talks about recontextualization. Of course, it's a different story, but for him, it is again the whole of that totality of the musical expression that I know he talks about it in terms of bringing certain indigenous musics into the school. But it is all this big picture of what it is that constitutes music or musical arts or music expressions, and how we deal with this in the school, in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. This is so interesting. I'm so glad that you have presented this poster research for MISTEC, and bring us an African touch of musicality and dance and movement, and this is really wonderful. So I see that we now running out of time, so maybe we can end this slideshow, and we can see the people's face now. Yes, so this is wrapped up now. So if Maria Louise, you can end the slideshow, and so we can see everybody's face. Okay. Yes, thank you very much for the friends who have stayed on, the colleagues who have stayed on to the end of today's session. I think today it was a great day. We see so many of you sharing wonderful presentations, and we've learned so much from each of you. And we want to thank everybody and all the participants who have participated, asked questions, and the presenters, and also our commissioners who have worked together and in the background trying to fix problems when there are some, and even though you may not be aware. And so there will be a feedback survey that we will be sending to all the participants, and we will send you a link very soon. I think after tomorrow, we will be sending you the link to a survey for the examiners. And we have the Facebook discussions. As you should look for MISTEC Facebook page, and you can see that this is a place where we can continue a lot of our conversations. And those videos we have recorded from this seminars will be put into a YouTube channel very soon, and then we will let you know the link. And so maybe let's see, I'm going to stop the recording and thank everybody. Wait, just let me see how I stop the recording, and then maybe we can take a picture.
Yes.
Okay, I've lost my co-host ability to stop the recording. So can you do that, Marie?